The most listened to liberal talker in America is back. Here's Ed Schultz.
Well, what do you think, folks? You think you can live on $15,080 a year? Yeah, I got that right. $15,080 a year. Well, if you make minimum wage in this country and you work 40 hours a week, that's where you are. Now, obviously, it's an entry-level position. But I will refer to the chart that I have done so many times on the Ed Show, the vulture chart, where we've seen middle-class wages. And if middle-class wages are where they are over the last 30 years, where do you think the minimum wage is? It's below that. And the wages of the wealthiest Americans have gone through the roof over the last 30 years. Well, enough is enough. There's some folks out there trying to change the minimum wage. For instance, on Tuesday, Costco CEO, he came out in support of the Fair Minimum Wage Act of 2013, which aims to raise the federal wage to $10.10 per hour. Congressman George Miller, California, on the House and Welfare, I believe, committee, joins us here on the Ed Schultz Radio Show. Congressman, good to have you with us, and thanks for doing this. We need somebody to move that chart.
All right. Good morning, Ed.
What would $10.10 an hour do for the economy if we were to go from $7.25 an hour to $10.10 an hour?
Well, first and foremost, what it would do is almost immediately put those increased wages right back into the economy. We know that minimum wage workers have to spend the money they earn to pay for their rent, to pay clothes for their kids, to transportation, and most of that would probably go to small businesses. And that's really the value of the minimum wage, is that it goes right back to the economy, but it also helps these people get a lift. They've been falling behind as minimum wage workers. Today they're earning 40% of the value of the minimum wage in 1968. So it really also provides some economic equity for these workers who work at very hard, very difficult jobs at very low pay.
You're basically asking for a $6,000 raise for minimum wage workers across America. The president only wants to go to $9 an hour. What's the theory behind 1010?
Well, the theory behind 1010 is that we've already fallen behind because of the inaction of the Congress since it raised the minimum wage in 2007, when George Bush signed that minimum wage law and 82 Republicans voted for it as a standalone bill. But we've now fallen behind. So our goal is to get to 1010 in three increments, and then index 1010, $10.10 an hour, so that 90% of the 1968 benchmark is maintained into the future, so people won't fall behind the wage curve and the income curve because Congress can't take action.
How do you think the business community is going to respond to this? Now, you got the Costco guy out there. Of course, he's always been pretty good to his employees compared to other big operators in this country. How's it going to be received?
Well, I think it's going to be mixed. I think, last time when we did this in 2007, Walmart came out and supported that increase in the minimum wage because they said that their customers simply didn't have enough money to buy the necessities of life, the basic necessities of life, and they encouraged that. We're hoping that they will join Costco in this effort to increase the minimum wage. We've built this economy, for better or for worse, on a consumer-based economy. And right now we have millions of people who cannot participate, cannot provide for their families, even though they go to work every day, all week long, all month long, all year long. They end up at the end of the year in poverty, and they can't provide the necessities for their families. And this is an important mechanism to help them stay in the American economy, to be able to provide for their families.
Congressman George Miller here on the Ed Schultz Radio Show. You're on the House Democratic leadership team. What do you make of what's going on? Boehner says no more revenue. President's talking about a grand bargain. I mean, you can't get a grand bargain without chipping away at the big three. How's this going to unfold?
Well, the grand bargain is exactly what it says. There's the entitlement reforms that can be made, and there's revenues that can be produced. But the idea that you're simply going to continue to cut domestic spending and domestic spending alone, and not the military at the end of the day, is just unacceptable, and it heads us in a direction that threatens the economy. You see more and more financial houses now commenting on their concern about a prolonged sequestration process that we're currently in, and whether or not that's going to be a very real drag over this year on economic growth and job creation. And that's what John Boehner and the Republicans are flirting with. They're flirting with the future of America's economy as it struggles to pick up speed.
Well, if we get no deal, we're going to see the economy erode. I mean, 750,000 jobs is the minimum. There's been a few surveys out there that say it could be up to 2 million jobs over the next several years. If that's the case, it's going to be a brutal midterm. It's going to be a fight for the heart and minds of the American people as to who's at fault in all of this.
Well, I think people will understand that the idea that Speaker Boehner is suggesting, that there can be no tax reform, there can be no closing of loopholes, there can be no getting away from what are essentially gifts of public funds to corporations and others that no longer need those tax expenditures, that no longer need those loopholes. If we can't close those and we lose those kinds of jobs, I think it's very clear that the Republicans chose austerity. They chose what's happening now in Great Britain, where their deficit's getting larger, the unemployment is rapidly growing, and their economy is tanking, because you can't do this with an austerity plan that only does it by cuts. The president has laid out a balanced program. He's put a number of things on the table that not everybody's comfortable with, but we can work together, and hopefully the dinner last night was the beginning of that effort to bring together that balanced plan. Just using one tool or another. You can't tax your way out of this problem, and you can't cut your way out of this problem. But together, you can arrive at a conclusion that leads us to long-term deficit reduction and immediate economic growth over the next 5 and 10 years.
I mean, I think it's great they had dinner, those senators with the president, but this is a crowd that says no more revenue.
Well,
and so where is that going to leave us? I mean, we're going to end up going to the midterms, I think, with no deal or some really upset lefties in this country, because this election was not about cutting away at the big three.
I think you're very clear on that. This election, it was very clear what Mitt Romney was talking about, what his supporters were talking about, and what President Obama was talking about, and those of us on the Democratic side in the Congress are talking about. And it was not about that we would freeze all of the loopholes in place, and we would only have deficit reduction. The American public rejected that. As concerned as they are about long-term deficits, they rejected that proposal, and what they're looking for is a balanced plan. If the Republicans don't step up, I think the Republicans can take the blame and the results into that election, and I think that they will have learned nothing from the recent shellacking that they took.
Congressman George Miller, appreciate your time, Congressman.
Thank you. Thanks, Ed.
You bet. Thanks a lot, sir. 1-877 we got Ed. 7